All right, welcome back to the show. I am here today with my co-host, Wendy Patrick. We're going to welcome in Larry Klayman now. Larry is the founder, as you know, of Freedom Watch. He is a former federal prosecutor. That makes two attorneys on the panel today. If you want to weigh in on the conversation, call us at 877-NEWSMAX, 877-639-7629. And no, I am not the second attorney, veteran trial attorney. Wendy is the other attorney on the panel. Hey, let's start with a story today that is fascinating to me because I'm going to put it in some context. NBC News, for whom Ronan Farrow works, he does freelance work for them, turned down the story that he worked 10 months on and published in the New Yorker on Tuesday about the despicable nature of the crimes of Harvey Weinstein. They didn't go with that story. They had him on last night after the story was published because, I mean, that would be really bad for him not to have him on. But they did run with a story about how Trump held a meeting with his generals and wanted a tenfold, that's all the fingers on my hand, tenfold increase in our nuclear arsenal. Holy smoke. But it's not true. The president came out today and said it's not true. Even worse for NBC News. General Mattis, Secretary of Defense, issued this statement. Guys, if you could put the graphic up because it's pretty unqualified. It's straight up. Recent reports that the president called for an increase in the U.S. nuclear arsenal are absolutely false. This kind of erroneous reporting is irresponsible. Love to get your reaction on this one.
Bill and Wendy, we know. Go back to the Lewinsky days. It was NBC and Newsweek that suppressed the story about Monica Lewinsky. The reporter Mike Isikoff wanted to come forward. It took Matt Drudge to break it. They're highly leftist. They've always been highly leftist. And this new story about President Trump allegedly wanting to increase our nuclear arsenal tenfold, it's not surprising that it's false. Now, he does want to modernize our nuclear arsenal because right now we have missiles in silos that are leaking that we don't even know if they work. That's how old they are, and Obama let them run down. So it's totally false in every direction, and NBC, it's not new for them to suppress stories about individuals like Bill Clinton or Harvey Weinstein or anybody else that's on the left, because they're on the left.
Larry, how do stories like this that are about issues that are so important get misreported, get leaked, and then fail to get fact-checked? How does that keep happening? We live in a day and age where fact-checking is easier than ever before.
Wendy, because there's no truth anymore. There's no ethics. There's no morality. You're a prosecutor. You see what you deal with in court frequently, even with judges. And frankly, the country has hit rock bottom, and they don't care about truth. They just want to destroy the president of the United States. And that's why I'm doing my best at Freedom Watch and personally to try to help him in any way he can. And as we've talked about with Bill before, even the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, has not been of any help to this president in buttressing him. We have a Mueller investigation, special counsel, thanks to Jeff Sessions, and that is also trying to bring down the president. So we're in effect at Freedom Watch, if I can do a little advertisement, a private justice department.
Well, actually, you know, Wendy, I want to get your reaction to that, because Larry and I have had a lot of conversations about this, and Larry feels, as you can tell, that Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, should have fired Mueller.
Right.
I don't know that. I guess he does have the authority to do it. I don't know in terms of appearance.
Are you talking about Mueller or Comey? Jim Comey?
No, I think both, right? He believes in both ought to go, but Mueller in particular in this particular incident.
Yeah, well, you know, it's very problematic to fire people at the very top of the food chain, whether they're the FBI director or whether they're heading an investigation. And, you know, I'm sure that option isn't off the table, but to go forward with that kind of a plan, that might be over the top. Now, we were surprised, of course, when the president fired former director Comey. Can you even imagine if we had a firing of Mueller? Now, I mean, I don't know what Larry thinks about that, but that might be beyond the pale even for someone that isn't afraid, somebody like the president who isn't afraid to make bold moves like this, if he believes he can back it up as the right thing to do under the circumstances. He'd need to be able to do that, Larry, right?
Yeah, well, let me tell you how it can be done, Wendy. I filed, on behalf of Freedom Watch and our supporters, a complaint with the Office of Professional Responsibility of the U.S. Department of Justice and the Department of Justice Inspector General. We've got leaks coming out of the Mueller investigation, and you know, as a fine prosecutor that you can't leak grand jury information. That's a crime. So the OPR, Office of Professional Responsibility, can recommend to Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, to let Mueller go. In fact, I think he should be let go. He should be investigated, and perhaps he should be prosecuted himself. So Trump doesn't even have to have his hands on this. If the Justice Department does its job, they need to investigate these leaks because they're very damaging. Even if the president's never indicted or impeached, this is meant to limit his ability to be president of the United States, to cut his legs out from under him, so to speak, and it's simply not legal.
Larry, I have two thoughts on that. The first is, in a day and age where it's easy to leak, I hate to say it, but you and I both know it's easy, how does one trace the source of the leaks to something that Mueller could have prevented, number one? And number two, do you think there's a concern that if Mueller were fired, there'd be a concern as to who do we get now? Might that be a reason in and of itself not to fire Mueller?
Well, I don't see how you get worse. I mean, he's not a man of great integrity. You know, anytime in Washington someone says you're a man of great integrity, look out, okay? Who's telling you that? The establishment. The establishment is not of great integrity. So, you know, I don't see how it could get worse. He's very partisan. We know the prosecutors that he has working for him, and it's inconceivable that most of these leaks are not coming through his staff. Yeah. And this is very serious because it wasn't right when it happened to Hillary Clinton, and it wasn't right when it happens to Donald Trump.
No, that's true. Really, we got 2 minutes left here. I'm going to get to, you have a very controversial theory. I know you're a man of controversy, but you got a minute here to sell me on why you think there's a cover-up going on by the FBI in the Las Vegas Police Department. That seems to be a reach, Larry.
Well, we know that Stephen Paddock, worked for the government at one time. We know that he's a heavy gambler, was a heavy gambler rather, and we know that in gambling in Las Vegas, which is a very mafia-connected city, you're going to come into contact with mafia-connected people. Now, it's not inconceivable that the FBI and or the local police department of Clark County used him as an informant. And perhaps, having committed the crime, I'm not saying the FBI or the police were behind it, but one of theirs may have committed this heinous act of mass shooting, this mass murder. And that may be one reason why they can't, quote, figure out what went on or where he comes from or what is the motive. It's happened before. A guy named Bulger, Whitey Bulger in Boston.
Yeah, we remember that.
Yeah, was a dual FBI mafia informant. I had a case with Peter Paul, who put on the Hollywood tribute to Bill Clinton. Yeah. Peter Paul was working with a dual FBI mafia informant named Stanley Myatt. Myatt actually had committed crimes.
Larry, is there any evidence to support your theory in the Las Vegas case?
Quickly, Larry.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll talk in New York vernacular, because I know the show's emanating from New York today. Is the police department and FBI that stupid? Are they that stupid that they can't figure out what happened in 10 days? They have no inkling. So I think this is something that needs to be investigated. We're going to investigate it at Freedom Watch. I've got a couple private investigators that work with me. I think this is a matter that should be looked into.
And that's interesting, and we will be in touch with you to follow that investigation, as a matter of fact. Thanks for being here today, Larry. Really appreciate it. Tom Borelli from Conservative Review is up next. Stick around after the headlines.